Hey, Michael. If someone could unmute and let me know if you can hear me, okay?
I can hear you.
Hey, James, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I just I had some trouble with my Zoom application the other day when I was teaching a CE class, and so I just want to make sure you could hear me and I could hear you, so that was good. So thank you. Okay, it is that time. We're going to begin. James, if you could unmute one more time and just let me know that you can see the presentation screen.
I can.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Just food for thought here while we waited. If you read over these kind of things, especially this fail slide. I always like showing this to clients because there's a lot of failures when you get started as an entrepreneur. And so to keep in mind that just because you fail doesn't necessarily mean you fail for good. It's just a temporary roadblock, so to speak. So that's why I like to keep it up here. Okay, my name is Steve Shalosky, and this is the Marketing Strategy and Tactics for Small Business class. We'll be here for the next couple of hours. I am an advisor with the Collin SBDC. I've been with the SBDC for a little over 4.5 years, going on 5. Before that, I owned my own business, and I am a former entrepreneur, I say, and I am a future entrepreneur. So this is just one stop along the way. In addition to my entrepreneurial experience, I also have years of corporate work. I was in corporate for a very long period of time, working for a number of big name Fortune 500 companies in marketing and mostly marketing positions, product management, that sort of thing. I also have an MBA from Arizona State University, and you have my contact information there if you need to reach back out to me after this class. Okay, so this is the marketing strategy class. The assumptions that you have to make before or when you're taking this class is that you're already in business. Now, there is a step before developing a marketing strategy, and that's usually creating a business plan, and then you're creating the business strategy with the business plan. This is the next step or a subsection of that business plan, which is your marketing strategy. How are you going to market? And so just to differentiate the difference between, or just to mention the difference between a marketing strategy and a business strategy, the business strategy generally has the following 5 sections: as a mission statement, objectives, value prop. You should already have your elevator pitch developed, and you establish your financial goals in that business strategy. This is an example of what one looks like, of what you're planning to do. Now, the marketing strategy is supporting this business strategy. It's what helps execute it. And so that's really the big difference. Business strategy is the overall arching. The marketing strategy is what supports it. When I advise clients, I really believe that there are 4 areas of focus for them to be successful. One, and primarily, is drive awareness of your product, service, or business. That's the marketing side of things, and marketing is so incredibly important, and we'll talk a lot about that in this class because this is a marketing class. And I believe it with every fiber of my being that marketing and sales is the difference between a successful business and a not so successful business. These other pillars are important. Manage the profitability. You definitely want to have an idea and have a good understanding of what a P&L is, what a cash flow document is, and be able to understand what you need to do in order to increase profitability. Because after all, hopefully you're all trying, or you're already in a small business where you're trying to maximize profits. And so not understanding that, you have all of these expenses that is taking away from your profitability, that is not going to go very far, or you're not going to go very far with that mentality, because you're going to go out of business. You're going to be upside down, and eventually you're going to run out of cash, and you're not going to be in business any longer. I also firmly believe, as a major part of, and this is kind of integral with marketing, is deliver on your promise. No longer are you able to get around Yelp and Google reviews. There's always somebody that is going to write a review on you, and it's not always going to be the nicest thing. And there might even be competitors that are trying to undermine you and will put something out there that's not right. So more than any time else in the history of business, has it been more important for you to deliver on your promise? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we had the Better Business Bureau, and you could join the Better Business Bureau, and they would do an arbitration between the dissatisfied client and you to satisfy the client and to satisfy you. And so they would get in between, work the situation out. Both parties would be happy with the resolution, hopefully, and you could move on. Today, that's not the case. Even if you satisfy the client, it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't write a bad review. And so that's why you have to really, and they can't even retract it. That's the shame of it all, especially on Yelp. Now, I don't know how unfriendly Google Reviews is. I would assume that it's just as unfriendly, but they almost live to want to have this negativity out there for whatever reason. They don't embrace the positive stuff. They seem to just embrace the negative stuff. And I wonder if you could request to have a positive one removed, if they would do it. And they probably would, because it's not nasty. It's not a negative review. So anyway, deliver on your promise, okay? Whatever you're promising your client, deliver on it. And that is only really through management control, quality control. But quality control and all of this is certainly an aspect of marketing. The only other thing that we're going to cover in here, and why the drive awareness and the focus on the future is yellow, is that that's what we're going to be talking about today. These 2 areas of the four. Focus on the future is a huge deal for entrepreneurs. You've got to be focusing on the future. You've got to carve out time, no matter how busy you might be, as the chief everything officer, you've got to carve time out to where am I going with this business? What new products or services should I be coming out with? What does the future look like? What should I what should I be thinking about based on the trends? And the reason for that is that so many businesses go out of business. There's a stat that's out there that says 7 out of 10 businesses fail by the 10th year of being in business. And the reason for that is that final one there, focus on the future. Those business owners get caught up in the minutia of the day. They get caught up in making phone calls to customers, making phone calls to vendors, doing the finances, doing the technical aspects of whatever they're doing, that they don't see that they need to make changes, need to make changes, to their products or services, or the management of it, or the structure of the company. They don't do any of that. And then they're left behind. They're a dinosaur. It's all over for them. So those are two of the areas that we're are going to look at today in this marketing class. If you forget everything else that we talk about today, remember this slide, okay? You need to really make a marketing plan annually, okay? Now, when you're first starting out, you have a business plan. That business plan is good for usually 2 years, but still, marketing can change on a dime. Even though you put that business plan in place, it's still good after a year to go back and look at the market analysis, look at your marketing plan, your strategy. How are you going to execute it based on what's going on in the marketplace? What are the new trends that are out there that I could take advantage of, or modify my products or services to take advantage of? So create a marketing plan annually. Spend money on marketing. Marketing is an optional activity for business owners, but optional as in, if you decide not to do it, you're not going to have the prospects or the leads coming in to make the sales in the first place. And because it's not mandatory, a lot of people don't think to do it. They don't even know what it is sometimes. Some of them believe it doesn't work. But I'm going to tell you right now, those successful companies that are out there, they spend a lot of money on marketing. And the reason they're successful is because they spend a lot of money on marketing. Whether or not every tactic works, and whether or not you have this recipe for success that you believe your marketing tactics should have, I say a lot of that is hogwash. You've got to spend time on kicking out tactics. And it's all about generating awareness, okay? We'll get into this a lot more in this class. You must have a website, and it must be mobile friendly. Now, most of the time now, because of the tools that are out there, it's so easy for especially new companies that are starting a new website, it'll probably be mobile friendly. But that's not the responsibility of someone else. As Mr. Chief Everything Officer or Mrs. Chief Everything Officer, you've got to go check those things out. And it would be best if you check them out on multiple devices, your Androids versus your Apples, to make sure that your website is loading properly in both. Make sure it loads properly on an iPad or something like that type of mobile device. Make sure that it loads properly on a computer screen, a regular desktop or a laptop. You want to check all of these things because it can have an impact on whether leads will come to you, whether they'll bail, whether they'll think, whether they have a negative impression of you. So it's important that it's mobile friendly, and you have a website, because everyone looks you up. You don't think they do, they'll do some checking on you. And spend time thinking about the future of your business. So those 4 things, try to remember those 4 things. Okay, so this is us. This is also our customer. And if you look at this, what I try to do is capture all the things that my life has in it, and friends and family has in their lives. Because I don't have all of these now, but a lot of people have these. And you can tell, and you probably already know this, it seems like you're, overwhelmed already. You have a job, or you have this small business that you're trying to start up in addition to having a job. You have all the personal things going on in your life. Maybe you have parents that are still living and you're still dealing with them, and either visiting or health issues or whatever it is. You have a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it is, significant other, and you're dealing with that, or you have kids, and maybe you go work out, or maybe you have a hobby of some sort. Your lives are filled with all kinds of stuff. Then on top of it, you have a mobile device that brings you 1,000 different emails and texts from friends and from far away or just down the street from a friend of yours or a family member. And you're constantly bombarded with that news and all kinds of other things that are going on. And so we are overwhelmed as individuals. Don't forget that this is our customer as well, okay? There is no difference between you and your prospective customer. So in order to get in front of him, in order to understand where he's coming from and understand how marketing works, you have to understand that customer. And I think that's the disconnect between entrepreneurs and the marketing activity, is that they don't understand their customers enough, or they oversimplify it. And they have to remember that this is what they have to deal with. This is the customer that they're dealing with. And you have to cut through all of that clutter. So what is marketing? And I don't really want to read this definition, because this is the definition out of my graduate marketing textbook, and it really doesn't mean anything. Marketing is really everything. It's everything. It's everything that you do. It's all the customer service that you do. It's how you present yourself to the customer. It's your business cards. There's so much that's involved in it. It's not, they try to do a flowery and a very inclusive definition, but the fact of the matter is, and to make it very simple, it's basically everything that you do, because it can come back at you if you're not careful about it. So I don't know if any of you have a bachelor's degree in business, or whether you have some college and you took a marketing class in college, but usually marketing classes cover these things called the 4 Ps. And you may have heard it as referred to the marketing mix. If you haven't, this will be a first for you, but they define marketing in terms of these 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps are price, the price of the product itself, the definition of it, the specs of that product, the details of the product, what defines the product, the promotion of that product, and the place in which they buy it, either online or in a brick and mortar, or by the side of the road, or wherever it is, but it's the place as well. And that constitutes the marketing mix. And that's why I say that everything you do really depends. I mean, it's really a marketing function if you think of it. How you respond to your customers, when they call in for customer service or billing issues, how you handle that matters. But also all these other things, where you sell it matters, how much you sell it for matters, what sorts of promotions you're running, and what is the content of that promotion, whether or not they're annoyed by it or whether or not it resonates with them. That all matters. The product definition matters. Okay, is it a quality product or a cheap product? Is that what they're looking for? Is that what your customer is looking for? That's the better question. If they're looking for a cheaper product and you've got a very expensive product, that's not going to go very far. And there's examples of that out there, where customers wouldn't buy expensive products. They would prefer a cheaper product. And I'll tell you the one that comes right off the top of my head, and I saw it firsthand in corporations, having worked for the company that got stiffed in the whole deal. And I worked for the company that actually made out in the deal. So I worked for IBM, and IBM is really known at the time that I worked for them, and I think they're still kind of known for this, is very high quality, everything double and triple checked. They had a product out there. It was called, it was an operating system called OS2. They also had the ThinkPad, and the ThinkPad was almost indestructible. I mean, just from even a physical perspective, but it wouldn't go down. It was a really high quality laptop, but it was expensive. So Dell rolls in with this really cheap laptop. When I worked for another company years later, after I got my master's degree, I worked for this other company, and I noticed all the ThinkPads were gone, and they were all replaced by Dell laptops, cheap pieces of junk. Honestly, I mean, the things were bad. They wouldn't work half the time, and it was when Dell was just rolling out a lot of their new products. And now they've improved dramatically over the years. They had to. But at that time, compared to IBM, their stuff was junk. Now, I worked for Dell later on, just so you know. So I've worked for both companies, but the just, it's not always the most expensive, highest quality product that customers are looking for. So that makes a difference in marketing. Okay, so everything that you do in marketing is about, you're trying to drive awareness, because we saw that customer a few slides back. He's overwhelmed. Okay, he's got all this messaging that he's dealing with. He's got all these activities that he's dealing with. Okay, so the only way to cut through all of that is by driving awareness. And how do you do that is through multiple impressions. You have to continue to hit them time and time and time and time again. And we tend to think as outsiders of business, and I was once an outsider of business because I was a student. I hadn't taken any business courses. I hadn't been in business before. My father was a blue collar welder kind of guy. And so I never really had any connection with it until I started taking business classes and business. And then all of a sudden I'm working for a business and I'm learning all this stuff. And then I become an entrepreneur and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, outsiders of business tend to think that there are different rules for business than in other things. And it's just simply not the case, okay? The same rules apply. When we go out and date, for example, some of you might be married, some of you might have boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever, and in order to have that date, because if your ultimate goal, let's say in a dating situation, is marriage, and that's not true for everyone. Some people just like to date and they don't want that serious relationship. But let's say, for sake of argument, that marriage is the end goal. Well, to date requires you to have this great first impression. You've got to go up and do the charming, and got to talk to them, and then you got to call them, and then it's that's the first meeting, and it's the second meeting, and then finally you start maybe dating at that point. You start going out more, and you're trying to get to know one another. It's the same rule in the business world. The customer needs to be dated. It needs to have a number of impressions. You know how that is, where a person that you want to meet, you go up to them for the first time, and you might see that person doesn't remember you or doesn't want anything to do with you. Well, it's the same thing, and maybe the reason they don't want anything to do with you is they're preoccupied with something else. It's the same thing in the business world. They're preoccupied. The buyers of your product are preoccupied with other things going on in their lives, and you have to cut through the clutter. don't take offense and don't think that your marketing tactic stinks. Now, sometimes it does. And I'm hopeful that this class will help you understand how to do your tactics a little bit better. But by the same token, you've got to understand that you've got to cut through the clutter. You've got to create the awareness. And the only way you're going to do it is by multiple impressions. And those impressions are, it could be any way of getting in front of that customer. No different than if you're trying to date and you're trying to get in front of that person, trying to see them every day or try to get to know them or go up to them. Sometimes you get shot down the first time and you're gonna go and get that girl or that guy, and you really want them. And so you try, you fail, you go back, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again until he or she says yes. And then finally you have a meeting. It's the same thing in business. You have to continue to do that. It's not necessarily that he or she doesn't like you, doesn't want anything to do with you. Sometimes that's the case, but in most cases, it's just simply that they don't know you and they're preoccupied, and you've got to get to know them, or they've got to get to know you, really is what it is. So it's through impressions, and impressions are from advertisements of some sort. And I'm not talking about TV advertising or some other form of advertising. I'm talking about any public notice is considered an advertisement. So it can be a business card, it could be the way that you're dressed, it could be the way that you handle yourself on the phone, the way that, it's all of those things. Your quality control, your customer service, your billing department, all of this is intertwined. And so those are all advertising, those are all impressions. Impressions are driven mostly by tactics, or they're not driven mostly, they're driven by tactics, and those tactics can vary. So we have the traditional advertising, your print, your out of home, that's what OOH is. It's the billboards or public advertising for buses or trains, or it could be even in taxi cabs. Not that people take taxis much anymore with Uber around, but it's any of that public, those public advertisements that are out there. Even by the bus stops, those advertisements that are in the little shelter areas that you wait for the bus or whatever. So that's what out of home is. Radio, TV, we've all seen that before. Direct marketing, that's the junk mail that you get at home. Electronic mail, email, very powerful tactic. Online today with social media, SEO, advertising, YouTube, all of that. Personal selling, that's a tactic. Public relations are tactics. The publicity, events, lobbying, image management, all that. And then other, that's what we were talking about earlier. Quality control, word of mouth, business cards. Word of mouth is a big one. That's where the Yelp and Google reviews come in. It's word of mouth. People are saying something and then posting it out there, and so you've got to deal with that. That's an impression. Someone reads that. That's their first impression of your business. Now they may read multiple reviews, but if they come across a negative review first, they've got to get over it. That's part of the word of mouth. Customer facing processes, we talked about customer service and billing and all that stuff, all matters. Those are all tactics, okay? It's essentially everything. And again, that's what this slide is. It's just, there's so much to it, okay? Even the name of your company, I don't know if you see that up here, this name of the company, but that's also a tactic. Okay? It makes a difference. The ultimate goal of any impression, even though you might not achieve it every time, especially like on a business card, it would be really difficult to do this, but you want to follow the ABCs. And the ABCs are simply, you want to grab the attention of the potential consumer. You want to reinforce the brand, okay? Your brand logo, your name of your company, that's your brand. That's what you stand for, okay? Now, initially, when you first start out, that is an empty vessel. It has no meaning whatsoever. As you continue to be in business and do good and poor things, that vessel fills with equity, negative and positive, to make a definition of what your company is and what it means to most people. And then, so you need to make sure that you start filling that with positive equity at every possible moment. And that's why your business card should have a logo of your company on it. My suggestion is you put even the name of your company on there every time with your logo, so that they're both connected. And at some point you can go without the name, but initially you want to connect the name with the logo so that they get it completely. So your brand, and then you have to make a connection. I'm sure all of us, now there are 5 men on this in this class right now. So you've probably experienced clickbait before, where you're out searching for something, and some beautiful young woman is in the seat of a police car. She looks like she's arrested. She may even have cuffs on, and it has something like, I don't know what the caption is, like, something in Dallas, blah, 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 you know, whatever the caption is, but it gets you to click in there. And then you end up going to a website called EverQuote, which is an Allstate. It's happened to me a couple of times, and I just stopped clicking on it. But it was, and as we all do, we understand what clickbait is. It gets us to click in there, and then it has something completely different than what you thought you were going to see. And so I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about making a connection, because that does not make a connection. What I'm talking about is words and images that resonate with your consumer that make a connection, okay? If it can make a connection with you because you're you, but it may not make a connection with your client. And this is all about the client. Take yourself out of the equation. You've got to use words and images that resonate with your consumer. And that's how you make that connection. So that's what you're trying to do in advertisements, your business card, even though it's hard to really do that. That grabbing attention is kind of a hard thing to do. Although I did have a client that did that. He had a metal business card, and it grabbed my attention. But then I thought about, okay, is this where he's spending his money? Is on metal business cards? And how hard is it for me to keep this card? Now, I kept it just as a, I don't know, something unusual that I wanted to show students and clients. But other than that, I didn't think it had much value. I didn't really read what was on there. I got more of a kick out of the just the metal aspect of the business card. So that's what you're trying to do on all these impressions, is just follow the ABCs as best you can. If you can't, that's fine, but just know that you want to have that goal of grabbing the attention and whatnot. Okay, so how many impressions does it take? Well, back in the 1980s, when I was going through business classes and my first marketing experience, we were taught that we really, in order for the consumer to take action, and this was really television advertising, in order for a customer to take action, it took 3 impressions during a 30-minute TV show. So, you know, whatever the TV show that was on, if we did 3 advertisements during that, 1 was to make them aware, 2 was to arouse interest, and 3 was for them to take action. So that's what we were taught. Now, it quickly changed because technology just improved dramatically. We had the internet, the introduction of the internet, and now the introduction of smartphone technology. So a lot of these things have occurred technology-wise that has changed that. And that's made your lives much harder, and mine as a future entrepreneur, because we have to now, in order to get that same client, we have to do what, 6 times the amount of marketing. And marketing is not cheap. So it requires you to do a lot more marketing in order to get that customer to take action. This is anecdotal. It's not statistical significant in any way in market research, but they're showing that it's 18 plus impressions. Well, if you're only doing one tactic, let's say that you don't believe in marketing after you do one direct mail campaign or you make a phone call to a customer, or whatever, you send a direct mail email to a customer, and you don't get anything back. Well, a lot of people that don't understand marketing and would stop. Oh, marketing doesn't work. I can't get a hold of this guy. They're not interested. That's not true. It takes you 18 times to get them as a customer. So one is nothing. One, who cares if they didn't respond? It doesn't matter. You have to go back at it 17 more times in order to achieve that customer. And as long as you know that, you won't give up on marketing. But a lot of people will give up on marketing because of that. They go, oh, they didn't respond. They won't even contact that customer again. And that's the wrong thinking. Think more in terms of, I have to approach them multiple times. That's a very attractive woman out there, and I need to get her phone number. And maybe it's going to take me a number of times. Let's get off the dating thing for a second. How about just jobs? How many of you have looked for jobs? This is no different than job searching. How many times do you have to contact a company for them to take your name, for them to even call you back? I mean, there are so many times where it's a one and done, and you can't be like that. You have to be more persistent to get the job, to get a date, to get a customer. Think in terms of those things. No different rules in business as there is in real life. You have to go after it. You have to stay persistent. You have to do multiple impressions to get their business. And that's what it's going to take. So as long as you know this, now that it takes 18 impressions, maybe you won't give up on marketing so easily, and you won't give up on that potential client that's out there. It just takes time and the ability to do it. Now, I normally do this exercise in class because of Zoom. I don't know if I really want to do it. But the point of making cookies from scratch is that, and I'll just cut through all of this. What I wanted you to realize that you five, and I would throw myself into this, we're probably not bakers or cooks. Now, maybe you are, and maybe you can make cookies from scratch, but I am not one for sure. So if I'm going to make cookies, I need to find a recipe, okay? And then I need to follow it with the equipment that's necessary, the cups. I can't just determine by grabbing a bunch of sugar in my hand and say, oh, that's a quarter cup. I can't do any of that. I don't have the experience. I'm a business guy. I'm not a cook. I'm not a baker. And so I have to follow a recipe. Well, you must all realize, unless you do have that experience, if you've created multiple companies in the past and you've done business plans in the past, you've done marketing strategies in the past, then you know what you're doing. But most of you aren't like that. So you have to follow a plan. You can't just do this off the cuff. You won't do it. And so that's the point here, is to try to draw an analogy to, okay, you as a budding entrepreneur or as a new business owner, you're now trying to get business, okay? Well, if you try to do it without a plan, you're not going to have the cookies that you thought you were going to have. You're not going to have the business that you thought you were going to have. Just as if you were going to go into the kitchen and make cookies from scratch right now, I couldn't begin to tell you how to make them. I mean, I know there's some eggs and sugar and butter and all that kind of stuff, but the right amount, and do I have everything that I need in it? You know, my cookies would turn out to be awful. And your businesses can fail, just like a bad cookie. You have to put time and effort into looking at and developing a plan. You're making the recipe, okay? And you're reviewing everything to make sure that it's right before you execute it. And that is why you have to create a marketing strategy to determine how many times, which tactics to use, and how to approach these customers over the course of the year. A marketing plan is a must. It's a must for everyone. Now, again, if you've been in business for 20 years and you've been successful, you kind of know what works already. And maybe you're satisfied with the growth, and that's fine. But if you're first starting off, you need that roadmap. You need to understand how to get, how do I accomplish my business objectives? Okay, I want to have revenue of $200,000 next year. How am I going to get there? Which tactics are going to help drive me towards that 200,000? If you don't have an idea, you won't do it. It just simply doesn't happen. Again, getting caught up in the minutia of the day, getting caught up in things that you shouldn't be caught up in, or you should do them at a different time, or at least do this activity instead. So a marketing plan is basically just I say it's similar to a business plan, but it really doesn't cover all of the aspects of a business plan. It's just covering the marketing side of things, the marketing analysis and the marketing strategy. It's not talking about operations, although operations can be changed as a result of what your strategy is. If you've changed your strategy and you need more customer service people, then it impacts operations. So in a way, you would want, if you're doing a marketing strategy that is going to change the structure of your company, then you may need an addendum to your operations. Okay, how many extra people do I need to hire? Do I need to get a brick and mortar in this town if expansion is the case? So all of this, it does impact other aspects of your business. Employees, it impacts different processes, all that kind of stuff. Start 4 months prior to the end of your fiscal year. So most people's fiscal year ends at the end of a calendar year, which is generally December 31st. So you want to start back in August, and you want to finish up in November. And why it takes so long is because you're the chief everything officer. You've got other things going on. You can't just crank this thing out in a few hours. You have to sit, and you might spend a few hours here developing it, a few hours, next month or whatever, getting this thing developed. Plus, if you have employees, you want to bring anyone in, even as a spouse or someone that's involved in your business, that can look at it and say, oh, I get it. Yes, I understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Get their perspective on it. So that's why you want to do it in advance. What goes into a marketing plan? Well, the first thing is analysis of the marketplace. Okay, you need to understand what's going on out there in your own marketplace. If let's say one of us had never heard of BlackBerry before, and I'm sure we've all heard of BlackBerry. What if we were bright enough in technology where we could create a BlackBerry device? And I know a lot of people get involved in that, and there's a lot of engineers and all that, but I'm saying if we could personally do it ourselves, we can get into creating a BlackBerry. Would we do it? Well, I think if we would do it, we would be pretty stupid, because we hadn't looked at the marketplace. The marketplace, there is really no place for a BlackBerry. The BlackBerry was really only bringing you email. It didn't bring you a robust experience on the internet, which is exactly why Apple replaced them. So, and Android has replaced them. They're irrelevant. They're former technology. They're not worth it. But if you didn't follow the marketplace and you didn't realize that BlackBerry was no longer in demand, then you're going to spend a lot of money with all the prototypes and the employees and getting it all together to develop a technology that no one's going to buy. So why would you do that? That's just crazy. The best thing for you to do is to go out and do the research. Go out and find out what's going on out there, what's happening in the marketplace, what are the trends that are going on. And then you can determine, okay, where do I fit in this? How can I develop a product or service that meets the needs of people that are people's demands in the future? I mean, you want to talk about highly competitive. If you try to come out with an iPhone right now, how competitive would that be? What would be better would be something that's going to replace the iPhone. What could replace it? Well, you and I may not be in technology, and you and I don't have the time to put that effort in. But if Apple's smart, they're already thinking about this stuff. They have stuff that's in the future. They have an innovation pipeline of sorts, and we'll talk more about that at the end of class. But you have to have something that might occur in the future that's worth investing in, that's worth staying in business for. Okay, so you want to look at the trends, the market trends that are out there. You even might want to look at other markets that interact with yours that may share the same customer, because sometimes trends in other markets will change your market. So just be aware of that, and especially on the technology side, if there's inroads that are made in technology in one marketplace, it could easily impact another marketplace. They could adopt that technology and change that market. So market and industry trends, important, very important to understand. Consumer trends. Who are the consumers? Maybe your consumers are changing. Maybe their desires have changed. Maybe they don't want what they used to want anymore. That's old. It's old school. Maybe the customers that are out there now want something different. Facebook must be dealing with this right now, trying to figure out, how do I stay relevant to Gen Z? How do I stay relevant to the next generation of alphas that are out there that are, I think, 10 years old and younger? How do I stay relevant to them? Well, right now they're irrelevant to Gen Z. They're irrelevant to the alphas. They are going to go by the wayside, just like what was that one that was prior to Facebook? I can't think of it now. It was a sharing kind of, you had your own page and stuff. Can't think of the name of it. You guys may think of it, but anyway, it's, we want to stay on top of those consumer trends. That's the bottom line here. Usage. Pay attention to usage, how they use products, how they, how much they buy, all of that kind of stuff. If you can find out what that is, the better. The more information you have, the better. Now, some of you might not be able to get all of this because it doesn't exist out there, but try to do the searching, try to figure out how to find this stuff. There's plenty of ways of getting some information, and you can get it from, technology experts that are out there, or experts in the marketplace, experts that, what do you call it, where, I'm losing all the words today. Icons in the business that are blogging and stuff like that. Try to follow them, try to understand what's going on out there. But what you want to find out in each one of these cases is learnings. What does that, what have I learned from this information? What does it mean? What do you know? What does it mean? And what are you going to do about it? So for everything that you pick up, you've got to do some analysis of it. How does this impact my business? Marketing plan, the second part of a marketing plan is analysis of the target consumer. Okay, this is understanding your consumer as well as you can. This is demographics, age, whether or not they have kids, genders, ethnicities, occupations, education, income levels, sales volumes, how much they buy, industries that they are participating in. Who are they? Where are they? How many of them are there? What do they need? And how can I reach them? All of this stuff you're trying to gather. Now, we also call target consumer a buyer persona. okay? This is an example of a buyer persona. This is a document that shows this is the example of what my target consumer is, okay? What's his approximate age? You know, what are the demographics here? And then how can I reach him is within this. What is this company? What is this company all about? How many employees do they have? What are their revenues? And then, you know, what industries are they in? And this helps you narrow the focus, because what you'll find is the more marketing is expensive by itself, but if you can't target your consumer, marketing can be taking a shotgun approach to marketing, meaning you're going to try to hit everybody. It is incredibly expensive. So it's already expensive if you target. If you can't target, it becomes more expensive. And I ran into this even as a marketing professional when Google AdWords first came on board. I knew I wanted to advertise to people all across the United States for my company. But what I should have done, and I realized, well, I really thought that focusing on the state of Texas would have been better. And I didn't understand Google AdWords, and I ended up, my ads were going to people all over the country that I didn't even care about. And it was costing me a fortune. I was running out of money just because I didn't understand Google AdWords well enough. Well, you know, there are ways today that, especially in Google AdWords, that you can figure out how to really target consumers to make well, they charge you more today, but still it's cheaper than going the shotgun approach. So that's what this is trying to avoid. You're trying to find out everything you can find out about this customer. Once you have that down, then you've got the second part of the marketing plan down. The third part is a SWOT analysis, okay? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And again, if you've taken an introductory marketing class in the past, post-secondary, you probably have heard about SWOT analysis before. And you can read for yourself what's included in that. But you're doing this SWOT for yourself, and you're doing it for your top three competitors, tops. I wouldn't do more than 3 SWOTs. And you could go to maybe 5, but that's an awful lot of work. It's better just to stick with those main competitors of yours that might be out there. And you're going to see for yourself by doing the SWOT analysis what you do well versus what they do well, where you can compete where they compete, and where if you cross, you know, what you're up against, okay, and how you can take advantage of them. We always think that, you know, let's say we open up a donut shop, that a Krispy Kreme is going to kill us if they open up down the road. Well, while they may take some customers from you if you're not careful, they have all this bureaucracy, okay? They have to go through multiple levels of approval to come out with a new donut. You don't. All you have to do is experiment in the kitchen, get a couple of people that might like it, introduce the thing. If it sells well, you keep it on the shelf. If it doesn't, you pull it away. You have all the flexibility in the world. You have no bureaucracy to deal with, except for maybe a significant other that owns part of your business. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you've worked in corporate, you understand what the bureaucracy is. You have to pass it by your supervisor. He has to take it to another director. He has to take it to the vice president. He has to take it to the president of the company, and then the CEO gets involved. That's what I had to deal with when I was a brand manager at some of these big companies. Is I had all these multiple levels of approval. I got my manager. Then my manager was a director. And then I had to get the vice president's approval. I had to present every time. Then I had to get this multifunctional group of approvals. Then I had to get the CEO's approval. So, I mean, to change a product with these big companies is like moving a semi-tractor trailer by polling it. You know, you personally, not a vehicle. I mean, it takes forever to move it. You don't have that. That's a strength for you as a small company versus a larger company. So that's what you're trying to identify in all of this. The opportunity is that you can come out with seasonal donuts or protein favorable donuts that they can't, which is why Krispy Kreme shrank in the first place, is that they couldn't take advantage of the protein diet that was out there. They were in expansion mode when the protein diet hit, and then they had to start shrinking right away because they couldn't deal with the protein. Donuts are carbs, lots of sugar. So that's what you're trying to find out with the SWOT. Here's what a SWOT looks like. I just put an example in here for you guys so you can take a look at that. But that's what a SWOT analysis looks like. Okay, you just come up honestly with what you know about them. And then the fourth part of a marketing plan has to do with categorizing targets. So you may have been exposed to this in the past as a consumer yourself, where you've been a customer of a certain company, and then they send you this email that looks like you haven't done business with them in the past. That's why you categorize targets, so you avoid a situation where you are alienating an existing customer. There are categories that you put these people in. Sometimes they're raw leads that come in, prospects that you know nothing about. And some of them, they've already made contact with you. Some of them may have purchased a product or two from you in the past. And so you want to categorize these so that you know what to sell to them and how to communicate with them. If you don't do that, what will end up happening is if you treat everyone the same, you're going to alienate your customers, or you might alienate the new prospect that comes in the door. So it's important that you adjust your communication strategy, and that's a part of marketing strategy, is how you speak to these groups, these groupings of customers, and so that's the fourth part of a marketing strategy, is identifying, okay, how do I slice and dice these prospects and customers up, and then have a separate set of tactics for each of those groups of targets. Okay, and then the fifth and final one is really laying this all out. You can lay it out on a spreadsheet, you can do it by hand, whatever it is, but you're going to say, okay, for every one of these groups, what is my strategy for communicating with them? January, what am I going to do with new prospects? January, what am I going to do with existing clients? How am I going to communicate with them? Is it going to be an email tactic? Because even though they're a customer of yours, they're still overwhelmed with communications. You need to bring them back. Now, they already know who you are, so then it's a factor of just reaching back out to them to pull them back in so they can be aware of your new offerings or existing offerings. Do they need to buy another one of the same thing that you sold them? Especially on the services side, they may continue to need your service. So you have to develop a strategy. But these are all the things that you would want to include in that. But you're essentially just creating a calendar of all the events that you're going to do throughout the year. You're going to try to price them out as best you can. Now you can do internet research to try to do that. You can make some phone calls to some agencies to try to figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost to do this? Go contact the U.S. Postal Service for this brochure that I'm mailing out. How much is it going to cost me? Blah, blah, blah. You just do all of these kind of things to try to get an idea for how much you're spending. Okay, and then make sure at the end of the marketing plan that you involve employees or significant people within your company to get feedback. And you also want to just spread the enthusiasm too, because this marketing is going to bring in prospects. It's going to increase sales, and that's what you want. So, and then the last part of that is committing. That's why I say spend money in marketing, commit to a plan, see it through, spend that money. Now, whether or not you get 18 for each one of those, I don't know. And maybe you don't have the money for that. But just know that by spending the money, by getting out there and doing that, you're creating awareness. And that's what you need to have as the first step in getting customers. Without doing that, you'll never get the prospects. Because this is what happens. People think, this is most people, they think that they could do a tactic, direct mail piece, an advertisement. They were talked into doing something, sponsorship of some sort. So they go do that and they think it happens right before a customer purchases. That's what they think. So that little sun and the lightning bolt and the smiley face are just the different tactics. And the shopping cart at the top of the buying cycle is when they're going to buy. They always buy at the top of the buying cycle. They're not interested in buying throughout the rest of the time. So they believe that they're dropping this tactic right before the customer buys. And that is just simply, okay, so what they do is when it doesn't work out, when they don't get the prospects they thought, that they don't get the sales that they thought, they think that marketing doesn't work and they stop, okay? That is a huge mistake. The more realistic perspective is along the buying cycle, regardless of whether you know when they're going to buy. Now, it's best if you do have a cyclical business, it's better to take advantage of that. But if you don't, we don't really know when the purchase is going to happen. So you got to fill the whole buying cycle with tactics, and they don't have to all be $20,000 tactics that run you out of money. They can be emails, and they can be direct mail, and they can be phone calls, and they can be all kinds of other things, so that you don't run out of money, but you can still maintain that communication and create those impressions that are necessary to build up to enough so when they buy from you, they have to know who you are, and they have to trust who you are. And that takes time, okay? Most tactics are equity building. And I fought this all the time at Abbott Laboratories. I'm sure you've heard of Abbott Laboratories, big farm company, a pharmaceutical company, medical devices, and all kinds of other stuff. And I was on the consumer side of things, so the consumer products, they make baby formula and all kinds of other stuff. Anyway, I tried to convince my management that didn't know anything. My manager was a former salesperson, and I was trying to convince him that you're looking at marketing wrong. Okay, I'm the marketing expert. I've been in marketing for a long time. If you continue to look at it like sales, you are not going to get it. Most tactics that you do are going to be equity building. They're going to be awareness generating. They're not going to be this instant, I'm going to do this tactic and I'm going to get back all these leads. They're going to contact me immediately. That is not realistic. And it's not for the big boys, and it's not for you guys either. Okay? Marketing, what I've learned most in all my years of marketing is that it's a trial and error exercise. It was that way with a company that I worked for at Hinkle, at Abbott Laboratories, at IBM. You're trying different things. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called A/B testing before. It's a common strategy that marketers use. They send out two different versions of a tactic to a set of consumers. It's the same demographics across both consumers, but they split the group in half. And they send one to one half, and they send the other one to the other half. And they determine, what is going to happen from it. How many people are going to contact me? How many, if there's any interest whatsoever. And we put premiums on these things to try to get people to respond. And the one that responds the most is the one that resonates most with the customer. So we try different premiums. We try different ways of phrasing things, different words that might work better with that group than others. And we're constantly testing, and we're constantly failing. Some of the best marketers I knew, that's what we do. We do this trial and error stuff. And I want you guys to realize that happens in big corporations, that there is no magic bullet. We're constantly testing and trying new things out, trying products. I can't tell you the number of products that have failed. Even products that I introduced into the marketplace have failed. So you can't think of it as you've got to be this incredible marketer that if you make this mistake, then you don't know anything about it. That's not true. You just have to understand the basics of marketing, and you have to keep honing your skills and getting it better and better. And eventually it's all going to pay off. Now, a lot of people will ask me, well, how long is it going to take? Well, just don't ask that question. Seriously, it's going to undermine everything that you do because there's not going to be any data to support it. You just have to do it. You have to trust that it's going to work. Treat it as a tax. Okay. I know that sounds terrible, but you have to pay 7-8% sales tax. Well, carve some money out. We'll talk about budgets here in a second, but carve some money out and use that money for marketing and be dedicated to it. Do it. Okay. You have to do it. Now, I want to just show you this chart, and I know it's 5 years old, and I try to get revisions to the chart year in, year over, but I haven't been able to find anything. Email is still an incredibly effective tactic, and that's the only reason I'm showing this chart, to show you that email is, and it was and is, the most effective tactic out there. Very rarely do consumers unsubscribe from you. They generally will just delete your email. And so email is so inexpensive. It's not free, but it's very inexpensive. So you are better off in doing email as a major part of your strategy. Okay, that's the whole reason for this slide. Okay, now I am afraid that I'm running out of time because I like to talk a lot, but I want to give you guys a brain break. So I'm going to play some politically incorrect commercials that I thought were funny. And this has nothing to do with class. It has to do with marketing and advertising, but I just want to show you what it used to be, what used to be shown out there and how things have changed. And I just want you to just, I just need to stop talking for a little bit, let your brains relax for a sec, and then we'll get back to all this marketing stuff here in a second. But let me, I'm going to unshare, I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share, screen share, this one. Okay. Wait, I'm going to go back here just a second. Let me go back. Can you imagine if Goodyear did a commercial like this today with how business is today and women are out in the workforce and all of that? Women would be outraged if they saw this as a new commercial that came out. But in the 50s and 60s, this is the commercial. The other one I want to show you here is at 416. 416. This is a real, I still can't believe this one. So just to give you a little background, this is the Flintstones. Some of you may be too young to have experienced the Flintstones, but Flintstones used to be, and this is prior to me even, that they used to be a prime time TV show, almost like The Simpsons were years ago, where they were more of a prime time cartoon. This was a prime time cartoon back in, I don't know, the 60s or maybe early 70s. But I think this might be even early 60s, if I'm not mistaken. So just to give you that context. Can you imagine SpongeBob lighting up a Winston cigarette? I don't think it would happen today. It would be outrageous. They banned basically all cigarette commercials. But here we are, primetime TV, the whole family, including kids, and they're being exposed to Winston cigarettes with their favorite cartoon. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. I thought it was kind of funny. All right, I am going to now unshare or stop sharing this and go back to my share. Okay. Marketing spending plans. So this is a chart, and again, it's the same group that was putting out the charts, and year over year, I've been trying to get one. I started this presentation, I think, back in 2017, and so the first year it was relevant, the next year it wasn't, but this just goes to show you that email, again, I want to bring up the impact of email, because email is such a powerful tool. Again, very few people will unsubscribe from emails, so it's really important that if that is the case, if that is truly the case, and it's so low cost, why wouldn't you want to make this a part of your marketing strategy to get in front of customers, to send them something for them to read? And we'll talk more about what you should put in these, but if that is truly the case, then email should be a major part of everybody's marketing strategy. It should be a tactic of choice because it's so low cost and it's so effective. And this is what global business leaders, and this chart represents the number of companies, business leaders, and how it's like 72% are this, I guess it's 295 global business leaders. They talked about their marketing program. What are the tactics that they use? Email is at the top of it. Okay, and they were increasing their spending in email. Okay, so this just goes to show you, and there's a lot of electronic stuff on the left-hand side. You can see trade shows and everything else, but email is at the top. This should show you that you should be considering email as one of your main tactics that you use in your strategy. Marketing budget. All right, so I alluded to the marketing budget before, and I want to bring this up once again. And because we didn't really talk about the breakdown of it, we didn't talk about costs or anything like that. This is a typical, now this is Forrester Research, and they are an incredibly reputable research firm. And so they went out and they did a survey of all these companies, and they came back, and this is what a marketing budget looks like. Of the 100% of monies that you can spend within a budget, within their marketing budget, 65 to 70% is spent in traditional marketing activities. And if you remember that one slide at the very beginning of this class, that's, you know, your traditional advertising, radio, billboards, that sort of thing. And the 30 to 35% is in your more digital side of things, okay? Online marketing activities, including Google AdWords, which is a third of that. Okay, so it's 30 to 35% is the digital, and then of that 30 to 35%, a third of that is in AdWords or Facebook advertising. Half of it is in search engine optimization. And if you don't know what that is, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Mobile and social media is also a part of it. Now, I think social media has gone up over this time because this is a couple years old. So I think what you're seeing probably now is that social media is more in the online advertising side. And so you could probably say that I bet you and mobile has kind of gone down, I would think. So I bet you it's pretty much neck and neck with SEO now. The whole online advertising, and that would include the social media side, and it would also include, because you have all these other ones, you have all the other social media platforms that might be out there, Instagram and Snapchat, that are now they have advertising models. It's not just so much to participate in it. Now you're advertising in it. So the advertising has gone up dramatically. Social media spend in and of itself, creating content and all that kind of stuff, that's probably, a couple, 3%, but the advertising probably has gone up much more. SEO is still maintains a huge amount because there's so much you have to do in order to develop that search engine optimization. So the general rule is this: whatever your projected gross sales are for the year, you should be spending between 5 to 7% of that in marketing. And that may sound really high to you, especially if you have a $1 million goal next year and you've got to now set aside $50,000 to do your marketing, or $70,000. But the fact is, this has been proven out by research. Startups should be spending higher amounts because in general, you have no awareness, first of all. And so you've got to spend more, and generally your gross sales are lower than existing companies. So you would naturally spend a larger percentage because you're spending still $50,000 for revenues that are not that high, because you've got to just do so much more to get that momentum going, to get that awareness created. So this is the research that I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of research that's down at the very bottom that shows where this all came from, but all of them show that you're in the 10% range, okay? And if you're in a B2C product business, and I know this firsthand because I was in those, they spend a heck of a lot more. They spend 16% of their budget in this. So you've got to, or of the revenues. So you've got to understand that this is not, you've got to spend money. These companies didn't get to be successful by not going into marketing. They got to be successful by using marketing. They're the ones that have the commercials on TV. Those are the ones you call. I mean, the insurance companies are dominating the advertising space, but if you haven't heard of a given insurance company, they probably don't have a whole lot of business. But you can see for yourself that I bet you Geico's revenue is going crazy. Same way with Progressive, the number of commercials that they have that's out there. And so you've got to do something similar. You don't have to spend at their same level. No one's asking you to spend $1 million but as a percentage of your projected revenue, that's what you should be focused on. So you need to spend a considerable amount to gain that awareness, to get people to start contacting you. And so that's what's so important here. Listen, marketing works. Anybody that says it doesn't, they don't know what they're talking about, okay? There are plenty of companies that were upstarts that took out the main competitor in the marketplace. At one time, IBM dominated operating systems. They had OS2 versus Microsoft, their operating system. And Microsoft's beat out IBM. Why? Because of marketing, because what they were doing, okay? They had a great marketing strategy and they undermined IBM's. IBM's was expensive and they were offering a low-cost substitution. At one time, Microsoft operating system was so bad, Windows, it would crash all the time. But we still tolerated it because it was so much less expensive and they went out aggressively selling it. And they ended up fixing the majority of the bugs. But still, IBM never faltered, even way back then. And we're talking about the 90s. Lotus dominated spreadsheets at one time. WordPerfect, Novell product dominated word processing software. Today, Microsoft owns both of them. They have no market position at all, hardly. BlackBerry, they were undone by Motorola, for one, on a stupid flip phone, but they were also crushed by Apple eventually. And even Sony dominated at one time with the Discman and the Walkman. Apple killed them with the iPod and digital music. How did they not see that digital music wasn't the future? Well, maybe they were caught up in the minutia of what was going on. Maybe they were caught up in what was going on within their company and all the bureaucracy and crap, and they didn't focus on what was important in the future. Even Polaroid and Kodak suffered from that. How could they not see the future of digital photography? And they were in the photography business. It happens to them. And they hired the brightest people from all these Ivy Leagues and all these MBA programs that are out there, and still they lost their market share. So it can happen. Marketing works. Google dominated Yahoo. Yahoo owned the search space before, the search engine space. And Google, an upstart, came in, had a better algorithm, better results, caught fire, a lot of word of mouth, a lot of advertising on their part, and bingo, they own it now. Yahoo is an afterthought. So it does work, okay? Now I want to talk a little bit about online advertising here, just so you guys understand a little bit of that if you don't have any understanding. So I mentioned that your website has to be mobile friendly. Again, if you're just starting a website, most of the time it's going to be created with a mobile friendly formats, but you still need to go and check all that out. But all these other stuff on here is just talking about why it's important to have your website mobile friendly, because mobile has really taken over. I think here's the chart, has taken over desktop searches. And so most of the people are using their mobile device to search for things. And so if you're not following along with that and you don't have a properly formatted website on a mobile device, customers tend to get annoyed by that. They'll bail on your website. You don't have things set up that makes it easy for them. That's what happens. So if you don't understand how search works, when you go out to these websites, now we're talking about when you type in a generic words to find a business. We're not talking about when you type in the exact name or a name similar to what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for Arby's locations, for example, I'm going to type in Arby's and go right to their website. They'll come up first usually. They may come up second. Somebody else might be bidding on that, but for the most part, you type in Arby's, you get Arby's. You type in your business, you're going to get your business. That'll come up first. However, if you're typing for, let's say I wanted to find a painter in the DFW area. If I wanted to find a painter in the DFW area, I'm typing generic search terms in a search engine to find that. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about search. You're typing in generic words to try to find something or someone. Okay, you're not trying to find a specific name of a business. Okay, there are two types. There's the paid Google advertising, and then there's the organic, natural or earned search. Okay, the first part, you pay Google AdWords for that. You pay them a lot of money. They charge a lot of money. So it's a very expensive service to do, but there's a lot of reasons why you do that. The second one is search engine optimization. That's done through time and effort on your part to move up into the rankings on a generic search so that you don't have to pay Google for that position. Okay, now this is, okay. I actually updated this, so that's good. So this is a search that I did for home painters DFW. This was, I think I updated this in October, so it may have changed a little bit, I don't know. But anyway, at the top of every page, so I type this generic search keywords into a Google search box. Anytime that you see ad, okay, in the front of it, these companies are participating in Google AdWords. They're bidding for these series of words, okay? If I did home painters, it might be a different set of companies that come up here. But if I typed home painters DFW, these four are the top ones that bid the most and were the most relevant for Google. And so they won the bid and they have the position, okay? As you scroll down the page, as you scroll down the page, you'll notice that there's this map feature and there's some advertisements in there. Okay, there's the map feature and there's advertisements in it. This is also paid. This is called promoted pins. And you participate in this through Google AdWords. So this is also paid. Okay. The first generic search term, or the first SEO driven search term, is is the first one that's down here. It's this unpaid one. Okay. It's Home Advisor. Okay. So that's a directory. So if I am a painter new to the marketplace in DFW, I better be thinking about putting my advertisements or myself in this directory, because most people are going to this. Okay, they're number one in the unpaid section for a reason. The activity level has gotten them there. Okay, they're the most relevant. So if they're there, Home Advisor, as a painter, I better be on Home Advisor. Okay. Now, as you continue to scroll down, the second one that comes up is Yelp. So if you're in Yelp, you need to participate in Yelp. Okay, you need to be out there. That is a directory of sorts. Okay, we may not necessarily see it as a directory, but it is. When you go out to Yelp, you can find different businesses, and then you find all their rankings or their reviews. The first business that comes up that's not a directory is Platinum Painting. Now, if I was a new painter in the DFW area, I might want to go out to Platinum Painting to see what their website is about, because they must be doing something right. Now, it doesn't mean that they're doing everything right, but they're doing something, or they wouldn't be on the first page of this generic search term. So they're doing something right. Big Al's, that's another one I would look at. 5-Star Painting, same thing. But as you'll notice that there's another directory, Angie's List. You might want to participate in on Angie's List if that's the case. Now, each keyword is different. So you're going to have to figure out what keywords are driving people to what keywords resonate with your target consumer that you would use, that they would use. You're going to have to project, you're going to have to figure out what that is. Now, there's some tools to do that. There are certain tools that you can go out and subscribe to. Google AdWords actually has, or Google Analytics has a way of finding out, top search terms. If you just type SEO top search terms, a lot of those companies that deal with that will come up with that. And so you can figure out what those keywords are that are driving business. And then you need to go out and participate in Google AdWords. You might have to. That might be one of your options. But as you scroll down, you'll see that here's a magazine article, DM Magazine. There's another painting service here, Alliance Painting DFW. Constable DFW Painting is another one. And then as you scroll down the page, you continue down the page, you'll see that there are now ads again. Okay, and there's one more page, I think you go down that I couldn't fit on here, but at the very bottom of every page and at the very top of every page are the ads. Okay, now, how do you, in the SEO world, how do I get to the first page? Okay, they don't pay for this. Remember, if we go back to this unpaid, starting with Home Advisor and Yelp and Platinum Painting, those guys are not paying Google AdWords incredible amounts of money to be on that page. they did it through SEO. Now they had to pay to get the SEO, but it's a lot less than paying all the time from Google AdWords, especially when you get that first page, you're there, you're where you need to be. So how do people get there? How does that one company get there? Well, it's through an algorithm. And an algorithm is simply a mathematical equation developed by Google, developed by any of the search engines. And what they do is they determine how the list of those companies that are going to be in order are going to be in your search. It's just code. It's just an equation. Now they change this all the time. This is not something that's one and done. Google did it 12 times in 2017. I haven't updated it 2018, 19, and 20. They've done it multiple times. I updated on one. I need to update this slide again. But you can pretty much guarantee it's at least a dozen times a year that they constantly change it, because there are scammers out there that are trying to not pay Google AdWords and still get on the first page without doing the necessary SEO. So in order to do that, they take advantage of the system, and Google has to go out and change things to make it so people follow their way so that they get paid. This is what most experts believe are in the algorithm, okay? They look at backlinks. They're looking at a company's referral websites. And what I mean by that, backlinks, is, does your web address, is it on anyone else's legitimate website that they already consider legitimate? You're a startup, your website isn't out there anywhere, they don't know who you are, what you are, anything at this point. If you are on other websites that have been legitimized by Google, then you get credit for that. Okay, you move up in the rankings. Metadata. Metadata is HTML code. It's behind the scenes. You can't see it, but it's what creates the images that we see on our screens. Well, website developers, they know where to put these meta tags. And when you're building in, what's the big website builder, but anyway, when you're building in those, there are usually spaces for all of that. And so you can, usually when they build your website, a web developer, they build it where they already go ahead and put those meta tags in. They're going to ask you more about your company and try to put those meta tags in. But those meta tags have a way, think of it as a red flag for your website in this giant pond or ocean of websites. Google has to do a lot of searching to try to come up with all of these companies to narrow it down to get you the right companies. They have to go through millions of different companies and pages of companies' websites. In order to make yours stand out, the meta tags are like red flags. They're out there and they're saying, okay, on this search term, I have this red flag up and I want you to pull me into your search. And so that's what happens. Relevant recent content. If you're doing blogs and you're doing updates to your website and all this other stuff, Google sees that and they see how you are currently in business. You're currently doing activity. That means that they're going to pull you in. You can't believe the number of websites that are out there that haven't been touched in 5 years. They haven't updated anything. Well, how does Google know that you're even in business? And if you don't have other digital presence like backlinks or any other websites, how are they going to know that you exist and that you're in business? They don't want to pull you into their search criteria. That you're irrelevant. You shouldn't be out there. So that's why you have to have updated website. You should be updating your pages periodically, pictures, words, anything. Have blogs going on so that there's activity, so that Google sees that you're doing recent activity. Social media. Okay, if you have a Facebook page, Twitter, LinkedIn, it sees all of that. You're all interconnected. And so it sees that you're doing activity out there in the digital world. And so you become relevant in their eyes and you get moved up. If you're doing advertising in Google AdWords, they assume that you're in business. Okay, that helps a lot. And so they give you credit for that. They also, just so you know, they go out and check out their own reviews, Google reviews, but they also look at Yelp, other testimonials from other legitimate websites. And if you don't fare well, they're not going to pull you into, they're not going to put you on the first page. Why would they do that? If they don't remain relevant to their clients, they're not in business anymore. There's going to be a new Google that's going to be out there that does that. So they want to stay as relevant as possible to you. They want to give you the best results they can give you. And if you don't get that, then you're going to move on and use somebody else. And they don't want that to happen. So, try to make all of this, try to see that there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. Mobile usability, this is what I was saying about it has to be formatted correctly. If it's not formatted correctly and there's an error of some sort and Google finds out about it, they're not going to put you in there. They're going to think that you're not in business or that you're a hack, that you shouldn't be in business. And so they're going to give you a negative check mark, I guess, for mobile usability. Website load speeds. Your website and this and how responsive it is, how quick it reacts. If there's a long lag before a page reloads, there's loading errors. If there's broken pages, you've seen those before, where it's a 504 error and the pathway is broken. Google does not like that, and so they give you negative marks on that. And then now almost every website has to have a security feature to it. So at the time that you're developing your website, you actually buy what's called a secure socket layer. It's just an encryption, a basic encryption technology, so it's not so easy for someone to come in and break into your website. And despite the fact that you might not be taking payments, Visa payments, you might not be taking Social Security numbers on your website or anything like that, it doesn't matter. They still want you to have the secure socket layer. And you can tell the difference between one that has security and one that doesn't. One says HTTPS and one says HTTP. If the P does not have security, the S does. And so those are the ones that are favored are the S's. The ones that aren't favored are the P's, or that lack the S in a sense. So they're very inexpensive to buy. You get that option when you set up your website. Your web developer can help you with that. And so it's a piece of cake from there. But don't think it's some magical thing that you have to try to figure out how to get that added. But you need to have that as part of your website. And every developer should know how to get that and get it up on your site. And even if you don't have a builder necessarily to go out to your hosting site, they'll probably have options for you to buy the secure socket layer. Okay, if you're not on the first or second page, you simply don't exist. I'm just going to say it up front. The statistics prove it out. Nobody goes to the third page, or very few. So few that it's a decimal point. It's nothing. It's a rounding error. Most people only go, most people, and we're talking about between 58 and 62%, they don't go beyond Google AdWords. First three options, they've selected whoever they're going to select. Most of the rest are all on the first page. Results 4 through 10, they get the most play. They get the next most play. And then results 11 through 20 that are mostly on the first page get the next. And then below 20, and we're talking the 20th listed business, both paid and unpaid. The 20th one, less than 1% will click on that one. So that's why SEO is so important, and paid search is important. If your customer, the only way they find you is through generic search, you better be doing Google Ads. This is your strategy. But if that's not how most of your customers find you, you don't need to be participating in Google AdWords. You don't even need to be that wrapped up in Google, in SEO for that matter. It doesn't matter because they're not finding you through the generic search terms. If they find you through your name, that has no relevance to what we're talking about. This is just generic search terms, okay? This is, you don't know what to look for to get these names. You're looking for someone that's selling a car or a dealership, for example. You don't know which dealerships are out there, or you're looking for, whatever the service is or the product. You're putting in a generic search. That's what this is all about. So as time progresses, SEO will take over, but initially you've got to put a lot of your money into the pay-per-click, which is Google AdWords, for you to get on that first page. When you first start out, you will never be on the first page, never. Make sure there are still ads out there. There are far fewer today than there were 10, 20 years ago, but there are still these companies that will promise you the world, that you will be on the first page of every generic search, and you have to do your due diligence, because what they're going to do is they're going to sell you on the fact that you're going to be on all these directories. Well, early on, Google figured out this scheme, and so they said, if we see a restaurant on a repair parts directory, we're going to discount that. That does not count as a good link, okay? And so they would go in, and so that company would not get credit for being on something that they shouldn't be, because we talked about back here this backlinks. Well, the quality of backlinks matter. It's number one up there. So if you're on a directory that is meaningless to your type of business, which is what they were doing, they would sell you this, oh, we're going to put you on 500 directories. Well, that worked prior to revision number 27 of the Google AdWords algorithm. It doesn't work today. So if someone promises you that, just do your due diligence. Find out, maybe get a referral customer of theirs, because most of these companies are pretty small. Get referral customers, know specifically what they're doing. Use this presentation as something to say, okay, well, you're promising that I'll get on the first page in here, but I see that you don't have a strategy for this. What do you think about this? Do your due diligence. Figure out to make sure that you're not going to be taken advantage of. There are plenty of companies that are out there that are willing to try to help you with SEO. A lot of them are legitimate, but again, you've got to do that. Okay, you've got to do your due diligence. Okay, web page helpful design tips. Okay, again, mobile friendly. You want to make sure that your website is mobile friendly. It has to be optimized. Whenever you have a customer facing document, it doesn't matter what it is, use the rule of thirds. Okay, and this is advertisement. This is your web pages in general. You want a third blank space, not necessarily white space, but blank space. A third pictures, a third copy. Copy meaning the written words. You want to limit copy and images, and you want to balance your page. All of those things are so your brain can absorb what you're seeing. If there's too much information out there, they won't get it. Just like this presentation, you guys are overwhelmed unless you've had some marketing before or listened to this before. You're overwhelmed. It's so much information. A lot of it's new. You're not grasping it. Okay? It's going to take you a while for this to absorb. Take some time, next couple days, open it back up, open the presentation back up, go through the notes, try to remember what was said, attend it again in a future time. You'll eventually get it. It's just like education, anything educational. You have to see it a couple of times for it to set in. Well, if you're too transparent, and a lot of people are like that when they're starting a web page, they want to just be verbose, put as much out there as they can. People don't read it. They don't read it. They don't care. They don't have the time. You're acting again as if they have all this time, that they're not that person that we showed in the presentation of that stick figure that's kind of downtrodden. You want to, if you know that that is how your customer is, you would never over verbalize anything. You would be very succinct, very impactful. okay, with your words and your images. Make sure that the images resonate, make sure the words resonate, okay? You want to connect. Remember the ABCs, okay? KISS is keep it simple. It's originally it was stupid, but I'm trying to be politically correct and use SMARTY. So you just want to limit everything. You want to be as direct as an engineer would be. You know how they write bullet points, but you want to draw attention. You want to connect, so you've got to use the right words. Engineers don't usually use the right words. They use words that they use to describe, and they do bullet points. Well, you need to do the bullet point, but you also need to do the words that resonate, that gets them to take action, that gets them excited about it, something, you know, that's what you're trying to do. Avoid any animations or widgets and sound. That's all, don't do that. And then look at your competitors. That's the best way to do anything, is don't recreate the wheel. Go back and look at competitors. Now we have about 12 minutes, so I am going to skip the funny advertising. Let's see, how much social media marketing. Let's see what else we got here. No, it's not too bad. Let me, I don't know. I think I'm going to skip over it because it's just too time consuming. It's pretty funny, but it's going to waste time, and I want to get through this other stuff. Okay, so let me get into social media. Just for a few moments. This was a chart from a long time ago. There's a lot of websites that are no longer in business, and some of them have taken, you know, the marketplace pretty much. They're dominating it now. So not everyone has to do social media. You don't have to do this. Many people think they have to. They don't. If you're in a business, meaning that your customers are other businesses, that you may not have to do any. Now, you may want to do LinkedIn because it is the digital networking king out there, but you don't have to do Facebook, and you don't have to do Instagram, and you don't have to do Snapchat or any of these others. That's ridiculous. If you have a certain type of customer, let's say that you're selling something to more of a baby boomer, well, or a Gen Xer, then you would want to employ Facebook, but you may not want to do Snapchat. So it depends on your consumer. Your consumer dictates which or any social media platform you use. So just be advised of that. And that's something that I sent along. There was a link that was sent to that to download, and that was the demographics for each of the social media platforms. And there was also, I think, something else attached to that as well. It may have been the SWOT analysis, and it may have been, I can't remember what it was now. Something else was attached to that. But anyway, in that is that demographic a little bit more, because you won't be able to see it on screen very much. But as a marketer, you can see which social media areas or social media platforms they use. Facebook is number one because a lot of business to consumer businesses, there is a reason to use Facebook. It is the best website. I hate it. I don't use it myself, but but a lot of people still do. And if you're trying to get a hold of a consumer in your area, Facebook is the platform to use. So you should be considering that. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube on the video side is such a powerful tactic to use out there. So, you know, that's why that's out there. You've got LinkedIn, which is very powerful. Pinterest, if you're into, you know, woodworking and all the things that Pinterest is famous for, then you should be out there advertising to your audience. And then it drops off from there. So you can see some of them. Some of them aren't even in business anymore. You can see here is where most companies spend their advertising dollars. Facebook, no surprise there. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Snapchat. That's how that rounds out. Demographics, you have a separate copy of this so you can actually read it, but there are some demographic information for each of these platforms. So if you're trying to appeal to men, you might want to consider YouTube. It has a strong indicator there, 75%. If you're trying to get different races, you can do that. Some products and services apply to different races. You know, look at what is appealing, where they are. That's where you want to, that's why you do that market analysis. You go back to this and you understand where your consumer is, you'll know which platforms they're on. Okay, they're on one of these platforms. If they're a certain age, you can see which platform they're on. How much they make, that might be relevant to your business. So all of this is in here, demographics. You should have a plan, and I'm not going to go through this because I'm running out of time, but just read through. Social media is not something that you pay your teenage son or daughter to go do, or you pay a kid that's working for you to do, just because they know technology, okay? You have to review what they're going to post. That's your customer. That's not his customer or her customer. That's your customer. So make sure that you review what he's going to post so he doesn't do something that's going to screw up your business and your customers, something that's going to alienate customers, something that they said that they thought was innocuous, and you're saying, oh my God, that's a killer. That's a killer for my business. So review everything that they do before they post it, okay? Create a policy and all that stuff. One thing I will say about this is there is a way to schedule all of these social media posts, and I would just blow past all these other ones and just focus on Hootsuite. Hootsuite, go out to Hootsuite, learn Hootsuite. You can learn a lot of these things, these social media platforms, these tools that are out there by going into LinkedIn Learning. That's a great resource for classes. Experts teach classes from beginning to expert. You'll be in classes that are, some are as short as 15 minutes, some are a couple hours long. They're going to teach you all the ins and outs of that platform or that tool, and then you're going to be able to use it. You can also get independent stuff that's out there by just typing need training on Hootsuite. You do that in the Google search box, and there's going to be all kinds of options pop up. If you need an in-classroom situation, especially if we ever get out of this COVID stuff, continuing education here at Collin College is a great resource. You get to go into a classroom, teachers there, they'll walk you through it. You can ask questions, you know, all the great interaction things that go on with a class. It's all inexpensive. This is an SBDC class, so it's free, but when you get into continuing education, as long as you're a resident of that community college district, meaning that you live in Collin County or Rockwall County, you can take advantage of Collin College's classes. Go look in the CE catalog, continuing education, and find out if there's a teacher that's teaching a certain platform. Go in there and learn that. Become an expert in that stuff, okay? Understand it. Understand how it works, how their algorithms work. Want to understand eBay? Do the same thing. Go out there and learn about it. I can't teach you how to become an incredible marketer on eBay because I don't have the background and I don't have the education in it. But there are people out there that do this all the time that are willing to share with you how they got to be successful. Listen to them. Okay, if that's what you want to do, sell on eBay, or not on eBay, on eBay, then you do that. Same, I meant Amazon. I didn't mean eBay, but Amazon, it doesn't really matter, whatever platform. But Amazon, you want to understand how to sell on Amazon. There are classes for that. You can do that. The only other recommendation I would make is don't try to conquer all the social platforms at once. It's get into a rhythm, start understanding it first, and then you'll get better and better as time progresses. Okay, it takes time. Social media takes time. And ROI doesn't exist in social media. Just because you get thumbs up and comments and likes and all this stuff doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're getting sales. Now you are making impressions out there, okay? But if you're looking for a return on investment, you can forget about that. Marketing is the same way. It's really hard to develop ROI. And certain people believe that they need to get an ROI and they won't do it unless they do, and they're gonna miss out. There is a best time to post. Don't forget this slide. So look at this. Here are the resources that can help you with more information. Joke time, I'm going to skip past this. The best place to hide a dead body, the answer is really the third page of a search, a generic search. No one is going to look for you there. They will not find you there. Your future, just really quickly, because we only have a couple minutes left. And then I'm going to have questions after the 1 o'clock, so you guys can hang on if you need to ask some questions. And then we can finish up. But I want to just get through this really quickly. Okay, you have to spend time thinking about your business in the future. You really do. And there's just so much for you to think about. And you are going to be caught up in what I call the minutiae of the day, all the daily activities and the crap that goes on. And you won't have time for this, and you'll put it off, you'll procrastinate, you won't get to it. So you've got to make that time, you've got to carve out that time. And the only way you're going to, and so once a month, I might recommend just leave your phone at home, go outside or go somewhere and start doing some planning, some thinking. Leave the technology out, the distractions out of your life, so that you can focus on, where am I taking this company? What else can I do? Who else would buy this? What subtle changes can I make to appeal to a whole new customer set? What changes do I have to make to my current product to adhere to the trends that are going on, so that I don't become irrelevant? How do I fight against competition? What do I need to do? All these things that you need to be thinking about as a chief everything officer, okay? So take that time, set aside some time monthly, fill in an innovation pipeline, okay? And I'll show you what that is. There's a couple charts here. Innovation pipeline is simply, you start out here with a bunch of many loose ideas. And you may think that they're stupid initially, but as you get smarter in this business, you will make some subtle changes to those stupid ideas, and they will become big time sellers. We used to have an ideation room in a company I used to work for, Dell Corporation, and we used to go there. We'd leave our cell phones. We'd leave our cell phones, and we'd just walk in there, and they had certain things in there, little things, devices that we could use to start spurring creativity, but there's just whiteboards. And all we do is sit in there and think about things. Sometimes we bring trend analysis from market research, and we just sit in there and talk about different delivery systems, different products that we could come out with, different variations. And we just had all this, what would seem like just not very well-defined ideas, but we keep them out there because that was the start of the innovation pipeline. Then as we got together throughout the year, we keep redefining that. Do we want to do any more on this? And we started doing we started opening our checkbook up to having some of these ideas tested by consumers with different companies so that they could get in front of consumers. Maybe the product themselves, if we had to do a prototype, or maybe it was just the words, or maybe it was just the concept of it, but we would constantly test it. And then as time progresses, you have these highly refined businesses or highly refined ideas. And those are what you're going to put in your stair-step chart, because those are the ones you're going to execute. So you do that. You set up a stair-step chart. And that's what this next chart is on the right-hand side. New idea A, you think it's going to get you $10 million in revenue, so you put that on here. And the whole idea is this is a long-term growth pattern, that at the end of this, you're going to be at whatever revenue 2, 5, 7 years down the road. But that's what this is all designed to do, is to get you think for the future, to get you growing in the right direction. Okay? What do most of these large and successful brands have in common? They have in common that they did not do this. they did not look at their future very well. Now, I put Dell in here because when I look at the Surface Pro by Microsoft, Microsoft is a software company. They're not a hardware company, but they're competing now with Apple, and they're a very legitimate computer option, laptop option. Why Dell isn't there when that's where they started off is beyond me. And I was so ticked off when the Surface Pro hit. I was like, where is our innovation pipeline? Where's our R&D folks? Why haven't we done this? They didn't have one. I worked there and I was like, you've got to be kidding me that we don't have something like that. But Polaroid and Motorola with their little flip phone, they were leading in the marketplace at one time, and they are completely gone now. I mean, I don't know of any Motorola phones. And then Kodak, of course, they went with Polaroid. They were both wed together. And Sony's the same way. They're an afterthought. I mean, they're just not there. BlackBerry unknown anymore. So it can happen. So again, this is CE classes. So if you want to take a CE class, you just click on this link and it'll take you to the CE training catalog, and you can see for yourself what's available out there. Register for the class. You can call that number, or you can register by using that link. And I'll just leave you for some final thoughts and open it up for questions. Now, I'm going to go into my chat because a couple chats came in and I haven't had a chance to look at it. MySpace. Yes, Erwin, thank you so much. I wish I would have had that up where I could see it, but I didn't have it up. So yes, MySpace was the one that was removed. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was going to drive me crazy. So yeah, so Facebook could be facing that very same thing if they don't really get with the Gen Xers or I'm sorry, the Gen Zers and the Alphas. The Alphas are individuals that were born in 2011 and until recently. So that's the new generation that you may not have heard of. But Gen Zers are between 23 years old and 10 years old. Well, actually, they're going on 11 now. So anyway, I'll open it up. You guys can unmute yourself if you'd like and ask me a question, or you can just put it in the chat and I will, and I'll try to answer it from there. And if not, you guys are all, this is the end of the class. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that you got something out of it. You have my contact information at the beginning if you need to reach back out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate your time. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, we're down to 3.
Hey, Steve, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. And I've actually talked to you in regards to my landscaping business. I've been there in that office with you. And I thought this class was great.
I recognize your name. Yep.
Okay, yeah. All right, Steve, you
Thanks
have a good day.
for joining. All right, you too. Thank you. Jacob or James, do you have any questions at all? All right, I'm going to give it just another minute or so, and then actually I'll give it another 3 minutes unless you guys get off, and then I'll sign off. But All right. Well, again, thank you very much. I'm going to end the call. Everyone have a great rest of your day.